Welcome to Storytime with Elo, YAA Trilogy Part 1, YAA's City Dreams. YAA was 18 and tired of being small. Not small in body, but in the way her life had been measured out for her, by clay walls, gossiping neighbors, and the narrow lanes of her village. She had a sharp, intelligent face, not the kind that made people sigh at her beauty, but the kind that made them whisper that she noticed too much. Her features were plain, almost forgettable, but her eyes were not. They were sharp, piercing, forever restless, darting at details others missed. She carried herself with a proud lift of the chin, as though she were taller than she was, her haughty air daring anyone to challenge her cleverness. It gave her an edge, one that the village women muttered about while pounding fufu at dusk. "She thinks she is wiser than all of us," they would say, nodding toward her as she walked past with her books tucked under her arm. And YAA would hear them. She always heard them. And she would roll her eyes and mutter under her breath, "At least I'm wiser than you." Her younger sister Araba was the opposite. Where YAA was angular and plain, Araba was all softness and grace. Willowy, with long limbs and a sway in her hips that seemed unstudied, natural. She had wide, expressive eyes that shimmered when she laughed, and a bosom that blossomed earlier than the other girls her age. Their mother liked to fuss over Araba, smoothing her hair and straightening her wrapper, declaring to anyone who would listen, "This one will marry well. A man with money will come for her." YAA would glance at her sister with a mix of irritation and envy. She pretended not to care, but sometimes, in the privacy of her own mind, she wondered what it would feel like to have curves like Araba, to draw admiration without trying. But then she'd remind herself, beauty fades, wit doesn't. And YAA had wit, brilliance even. Their father was a man of calloused hands and patient silences. He rose with the sun to till the land, his back bent under years of labor. He had a dry humor that surfaced in unexpected moments. And though he loved both daughters, he was practical in his pride. "Araba will keep her husband's house warm," he would say, patting his younger daughter's head. "And YAA, she will solve problems no man can." He chuckled when he said it, as if it were a joke. But YAA held on to those words as though they were prophecy. Still, she hated the village, the gossip, the endless routine, the way every path led back to the same clay huts and cassava fields. She longed for something bigger, something brighter, a life where her sharp eyes and quicker tongue would not be wasted. Her high school science teacher, Mr. Ofori, was the only one who seemed to understand. He was a wiry man, with spectacles that constantly slid down his nose, and chalk dust always clinging to his sleeves. He had a way of looking at her, as though she were not simply another student in a crumbling classroom, but a mind waiting to explode. "You don't belong here, YAA," he told her one afternoon after class, as the others filed out in noisy chatter. "Your mind is too big for this place. Apply for the scholarship to Accra University. Show them what you can do." YAA smirked, but there was a flicker in her chest, a flame that warmed her ribs. She liked the sound of that. Accra, a city where nobody knew her family's small plot of land, where nobody compared her to her sister, where her worth would be measured not by her looks, but by her mind. "Do you really think I can get it?" she asked, her tone half challenging, half hopeful. Ofori pushed his spectacles up and smiled. If anyone can, it's you. You see solutions others miss. Don't waste it here. She walked home that day with her head held higher, the gossip of the women floating around her like smoke. But this time, she didn't mind. Let them talk. She was already imagining a life beyond them. The letter came on a hot, dusty afternoon, when even the goats had given up on moving. YAA spotted the envelope tucked under her father's arm as he trudged up the path from the market. Her heart knew before her eyes confirmed. She snatched it with trembling hands, tore it open, and when she read the words, "Scholarship awarded," her whole body sparked like lightning. Her mother gasped and pressed her palms together in prayer. Oh God, thank you, thank you. Tears streaked down her cheeks. Araba squealed, flung her arms around YAA, and danced her in dizzy circles, her wide eyes shining with sisterly pride. But YAA felt only half of it. The joy in the room wasn't hers entirely. It was theirs, the family's, the neighbors who would surely hear by evening. For her, the letter was something different. A key, a ticket out. She clutched it tight to her chest, her eyes narrowing. This was not just luck. This was destiny. Her father's voice cracked as he said, "You will make us proud, YAA." His calloused hand rested gently on her shoulder, a hand that had known too much earth and not enough ease. That night, as the village gathered to congratulate her, the air buzzed with laughter and envy. Women whispered that she would come back too proud, and that the city would swallow her whole. Men nodded with the weight of old wisdom, muttering that too much ambition could sour a woman. YAA smiled tightly, rolling her eyes when backs were turned. She knew she was already above their pettiness. Their voices would be nothing but distant echoes. The day she left, the trotro was already half full when her father set her trunk down beside her. The vehicle wheezed, as if reluctant to bear the burden of so many dreams. Her mother stuffed her bag with food, kenkey wrapped in leaves, fried fish wrapped in brown paper, her tears dampening the cloth. Araba clung to her, whispering through sobs, "Promise me you come back." YAA only smiled, her pulse quickening. Why promise something she had no intention of keeping? The trotro lurched forward, and a village fell away in the dust. She pressed her forehead to the window, the field blurring into streaks of green and brown. The ride stretched on, chaotic, endless. YAA's knuckles clenched white around her backstrap, her stomach twisted with every sudden break, every too close swerve. Yet beneath the fear, excitement pulsed, wild and untamed. She was leaving behind gossip, goats, clay walls. She was heading towards a tower of glass and steel, libraries taller than trees, streets alive with ambition. Accra rose on the horizon like a beast, smoke curling above it, noise crashing against her ears. Before she even stepped off the trotro, the air was thick with roasted corn, petrol fumes, and something sour she couldn't name. The city did not wait politely. It shoved, jostled, and demanded. Men called out prices 3 times too high when she stumbled into a taxi, her accent betraying her roots. She felt small again, but in a different way. Not because she was overlooked, but because the city was so much bigger than even her imagination. Her chest swelled. For the first time, she was terrified. And for the first time, she loved it. The university campus was nothing like she'd imagined. The gates opened onto an expansive building so large it made her heart stumble. She stood there, with her trunk at her feet, staring at the lecture halls that loomed like giants, their whitewashed walls blinding under the sun. Students flowed past her in streams, some laughing, some glued to their phones, all of them dressed like they belonged to a faster, brighter world. YAA adjusted her wrapper self-consciously. She had braided her own hair the night before leaving the village. Tight rows that itched against her scalp. Her blouse was serviceable, the same cotton she wore to church. She suddenly felt very self-conscious, as though every passing student could see the clay dust still clinging to her. The dormitory was a blocky structure that smelled of detergent and floor polish. Her room was on the second floor, and when she pushed open the door, she froze. Music thumped from a speaker in the corner, and a girl with a wild, glorious afro was twirling before a cracked mirror, applying lipstick with theatrical precision. She turned at once, eyes wide, and broke into a grin. "Oh, my days, look at you," the girl exclaimed, rushing forward. "Fresh from the village, right?" YAA stiffened. "And what if I am?" "Ah, don't mind me, I like to tease." The girl waved a hand and plucked the trunk from YAA as if it weighed nothing. "I'm Enam. You'll love it here. But first things first, we need to sort you out. That hair, those clothes. Sis, the city will eat you alive." YAA bristled, but Enam's laughter was infectious, a bright bubble that filled the room. Within hours, Enam had dragged her to a kiosk on the edge of campus, where a stylist sat under a bright umbrella, braiding hair while shouting jokes at passers-by. "Sit," Enam commanded, pushing YAA into the chair. "You're in Accra now. Time to look the part." The braids tugged at her scalp, each twist pulling away a piece of the village. Enam leaned close, whispering commentary about every boy who strutted past, her eyes rolling dramatically. By the time YAA caught her reflection in a scrap of tin held up as a mirror, she almost didn't recognize herself. Her face looked sharper, her eyes brighter, framed by new twists that swung when she moved. Back in the dorm, Enam flung open YAA's trunk and tutted loudly at the contents. "Skirts down to your ankles." "Oh, we'll fix that. Don't worry, I'll lend you some of mine until you buy new ones." YAA folded her arms, trying not to laugh. "And what if I like my skirts?" "Then you scare all the boys away," Enam winked. "Or maybe that's your plan." For the first time since leaving the village, YAA laughed until her stomach hurt. The next morning, she followed the flood of students into her first lecture hall. It was vast, rows upon rows of desks that seemed to stretch into infinity. The walls echoed with chatter, the rustle of notebooks, the buzz of anticipation. YAA took a seat in the middle, the new braids falling forward as she opened her book. That was when she noticed him. Kwame, tall, broad-shouldered, with skin like polished mahogany, and a smile that seemed carved by some benevolent god. He slid into the seat beside her, as though it was the most natural thing in the world. "You're new," he said, his voice low, smooth, carrying just enough warmth to disarm. "And you're observant." He chuckled. "You're the only one actually opening your book. Everyone else is pretending." She smirked despite herself, though she kept her eyes on the page. Something about his presence made her pulse quicken, and she hated that. Then the room hushed. Professor Mensah strode in. He was older, his salt and pepper hair neatly trimmed, his glasses perched with authority. He carried himself with the easy confidence of a man who had nothing left to prove. His voice rolled through the hall like thunder, commanding without effort. Within minutes, YAA was leaning forward, caught in his rhythm, dazzled by the way he made equations sound like poetry. When he paused to ask a question, YAA's hand shot up before she could stop herself. Her answers spilled out clear and precise, and for the first time in her life, a man of power looked at her, not with dismissal, but with genuine admiration. "Well done, Miss—" "Yeah," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Miss YAA," he repeated, his mouth curving in approval. "You have a gift few possess." Heat flared in her chest, pride mingling with something sharper. Over the next few weeks, YAA began to feel both exhilarated and unsettled by campus life. It was too loud, too fast, too bright. Enam, on the other hand, seemed to thrive in it, always laughing, always introducing her to new friends, already speaking the language of the city like she was born for it. But YAA kept herself anchored to her books. "You need to relax," Enam teased one evening, sprawled across her bed. "You act like the library is your boyfriend." "I didn't come here to relax," YAA replied, not looking up from her notes. And yet, when Kwame stopped her on the library steps, she felt something she hadn't expected. "You never look up," he said, smiling easily. "Do books really compete with the world out here?" YAA lifted her chin. "Books last longer than the world out here." Kwame laughed. "Maybe, but the world out here can knock back." She turned away, unwilling to let him see the blush rising in her cheeks. Still, she noticed the warmth in his eyes, and she hated that she noticed. It was after a lecture that Professor Mensah first asked her to stay behind. His voice was calm, his manner authoritative, but not unkind. "Miss YAA," he said, glancing down at her paper, "your work is exceptional. You think differently. You see the hidden path in equations." Her pulse fluttered. She followed him to his office, stepping into a room that smelled of polished wood and old books. Stacks of journals lined the walls, a single lamp pooling gold across the desk. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a chair. He flipped through her assignment, pausing now and then to nod. Your logic is clean. You don't just answer, you interpret. That's very rare." YAA straightened, her shoulders pulling back. Praise was not new to her, but coming from him, the great Professor Mensah, respected, admired, it wrapped around her like a silk cloak. "You could go far," he added, sliding her paper back across the desk, "if you stay disciplined, if you keep your hunger sharp. Promise me you won't waste your gift." "I won't," she said quickly, almost breathlessly. He gave her a reading list, scrawled neatly in his precise handwriting. Books she had never even heard of. She held the page as if it were a treasure. When she walked back to the dorm that evening, she was glowing. Enam looked up from her phone and smirked. "What's with you? Did someone propose?" YAA only smiled faintly and tucked the list inside her notebook. She felt seen, understood, as though Mensah had unlocked a door no one else even knew existed. A week later, he asked her again. "Miss YAA, stop by my office." His office was warm in the late afternoon, sunlight spilling through the shutters. He gestured for her to sit, his voice carrying that same easy authority. "I went through your latest work," he said, sliding the paper toward her. "Strong, very strong, but I think you can stretch further. You are capable of more than just good marks. You are capable of brilliance." Her throat tightened, a mixture of pride and hunger. She leaned forward, eager for more. He leaned back, studying her, his gaze lingering a moment too long. Do you know how rare it is for someone to make me pause? He let the question hang before continuing. You make me pause, Miss Ya. You make me think. She flushed, not knowing how to answer. He handed her another reading list, then added in a quieter voice, These aren't just books. They're keys. And if you read them, you'll open doors others won't even see. His words made her feel like the center of the universe. He rose from the chair, stepping around the desk. Promise me you won't let this world distract you. Promise me you'll guard your gift. I promise, she whispered. He smiled, then reached past her to adjust the stack of journals on the shelf. His arm brushed against her shoulder. Innocent, maybe. Or maybe not. She couldn't be sure. She told herself it was nothing, but the warmth of it stayed long after she'd left. The third time Mensa asked her to stay behind, dusk was settling outside. The corridors hummed with a shuffle of students leaving, their chatter fading until the building grew still. She stepped into his office. Ah, yeah, Mensa said warmly, rising from his chair. My brightest student. She flushed. I don't know about brightest. Don't argue with me. His tone was playful, but absolute. He gestured for her to sit once again. And when she did, he leaned forward, his eyes glinting behind his glasses. You remind me of myself when I was young. Sharp, untouchable, hungry for the world. Her chest filled with pride, the corners of her mouth tugging upward. You must protect that hunger, yeah? The world would try to dull it. Men will try to dull it. He smiled, as if he were doing her a kindness. But not me. I see you. His hand brushed hers as he slid another paper toward her. This time, he didn't move it away quickly. His fingers lingered, warm, heavy. She looked down at the paper, pretending to read. You're tense, he murmured. You shouldn't be. You're safe here with me. Intoxicating, suffocating. She shifted in her chair, but his gaze held her in place. You're extraordinary, The room seemed to shrink. The lamplight flickered, casting long shadows. His smile was still kind, his voice still gentle, but something in the air had shifted. She felt it in the way her skin prickled, in the way her pulse thudded loud in her ears. When he leaned closer, she caught the faint spice of his cologne. His words twisted between mentorship and command. And then, in a voice soft as silk but sharp as a blade, you want to keep your scholarship, don't you? Then you know what you must give. The door clicked shut, locked. When Ya finally stepped back into the corridor, her legs were unsteady. Her papers shook in her hands, smudged at the corners. Laughter echoed from somewhere down the hall, but the sound was distant, cruel in its ordinariness. She walked quickly, eyes fixed on the ground. She had entered his office a student. She left it forever changed. At first, she tried to carry on. She answered his summons, praying each time it would be different, that he would only talk about books, about numbers. Sometimes he did. More often, he didn't. The shame sank deeper, until even her brilliance deserted her. Equations blurred on the page, logic scattered into nonsense, whispers trailed in the corridors, rumors she couldn't silence. Her grades fell, sharp and fast. She withdrew into herself, snapping at Kwame when he reached for her hand, ignoring Enam's worried glances. She stopped eating, stopped sleeping. And finally, she stopped pretending. One night, YAA packed her trunk. She didn't leave a note. She didn't wake Enam. She didn't knock on Kwame's door. By the time dawn cracked across the city, she was already gone, back toward the village she had once sworn to escape. Her mother saw her first and cried out with joy, rushing forward to hold her tight. "My daughter is home. Thank God you are safe." Relief softened every line in her face, as if YAA's return itself was a blessing. Her father was slower, his voice edged in disappointment. "So soon? After all your pride, after all your boasting, you gave up so easily?" But she offered nothing. They pressed her for answers, but she refused. The words curdled in her throat, too heavy to release. Araba hugged her fiercely. "I'm just glad you're back," she whispered. Yet in her wide, expressive eyes, YAA saw something that pierced her. Not judgment, but pity. Days blurred. YAA drifted through the village like a shadow. The routines both familiar and strange. Then one afternoon, a group of young girls she had once tutored came running barefoot and breathless, school books clutched to their chests. "Sister YAA, are you home for good? Are you going to teach us again?" Their voices were high with hope. And YAA, staring into the expectant faces, felt something crack open inside her chest. Not joy, not pride, anger. Anger at Mensa, at herself, at the silence that had turned her into this hollow thing. She wanted to run, but the anger rooted her to the spot, burning low, refusing to fade. Something else cracked inside her chest, like a dam breaking. No, no, she would not let Mensa's violation rob her of everything she'd clawed towards. Her future belonged to her, not to him, not to his filthy hands. She would return to that university, and she would rip her degree from his jaws if she had to. And Mensa, she would destroy him. She would make him bleed.